To officially welcome you all, may I now invite Engineer Granny R. Jayalath, the President of the Institution of Engineers, Sri Lanka, to deliver the welcome address. Sir, the stage is yours.
Dear Engineer Lalit Wijewardena, our speaker today, Engineer Mahesh Disanayake, Chairman Agricultural and Plantation Engineering, Council members, past presidents of the institution, and the family members of the late Engineer Dr. Wijewardena, members of the institution, Executive Secretary and the ESL Secretariat staff. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all of you. We had gathered here today to pay the tribute to the remarkable life and legacy of a truly exceptional individual engineer, Dr. Wijewardena, and I am deeply honored to address you as the President of ISL on this special occasion. Today we had gathered here not only to remember the life of a great engineer, inventor, and visionary, but also to celebrate lasting impact that Dr. Wijewardena has had on our minds. His contributions have transcended boundaries and inspired generations to think beyond the ordinary. Our dream, to dream big, and also to resolve in the face of challenges. Let me warmly welcome today our speaker, Engineer Lalit Wijewardena. Also, he's the speaker today. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation to speak at this momentous occasion. Past presidents of ISL and council members also very well welcome. Family members of the late Dr. Wijewardena, who presents here today, is a great honor. We accept all of you today here. So going further, as the tradition dictates, it falls upon me to give an account of the late Dr. Wijewardena. Wijewardena, also known as the resonance person of Sri Lanka, and upon whom in 2008, ISL confirmed its highest award of eminence in engineering, excellence in the engineering profession in 2008. And today, we celebrate the 101 birth anniversary, and we are commemorating today this event. Going Wijewardena, the Philip Revata Wijewardena, was born in Colombo, Ceylon on 20th August 1924. He had his primary education and secondary education at the Ladies' College, Colombo, and St. Thomas College, Mount Livonia. He proceeded to the Peterhouse College, Cambridge University, UK, where he studied 3 branches of engineering: aeronautical, even in that era, aeronautical, mechanical, and agriculture. He also earned qualification in business administration. Even we can't believe in that era. From the Harvard Business School, and later received the honorary degrees from universities in the UK and Sri Lanka. Well known for his twin passions, agricultural machinery and aeroplanes, his interest in tropical farming in particular led to the design, all of you are aware of the 2-wheeled hand tractor in 1955. The invention changed the scope of farming and was soon mass-produced by the Landmaster in Nottingham, UK. While this is Ray's most famous contribution today, up to date, his other accomplishments are testament to a life lived to the fullest. Ray dedicated the rest of his life for researching and promoting ecological sustainable agriculture and later renewable energy technologies. As a world authority on tropical farming system, Ray worked for the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, in early 1970s as the head of agricultural engineering at the Mechanization and Automation Research Center in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. He then spent nearly about 5 years as the head of agricultural engineering and the research at the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture in Nigeria for 5 years. During this time, he forced a large number of improvements and innovation to help the farmers, small farmers in developing world to grow more food without high external inputs. In particular, he promoted a technique called sloping agricultural landscape, originally developed in Philippines. This involved terracing of the land, use leaf mulch, and reintroducing perennial trees into rain-fed farming. Returning to Sri Lanka in 1980, he continued experimenting with rain-fed farming and agroforestry on his coconut estate at Kapkapalya in the northwestern province. He also did field test and dendrothermal power, the generation of electricity from firewood. This technology is now increasingly being used in the industry today. He also introduced intercropping. You know, would have heard about the Guinea with coconut vastly increasing the coconut yields. For decades, Ray worked closely with Sri Lankan business, research and policy communities. He held various appointments as the chairman of the Tea Research Board, head of the Inventors Commission, and also a member of several public bodies concerned with agriculture. Science and technology. He was the Chancellor of the University of Morocco from 2002 to 2007 for 5 years. The government of Sri Lanka awarded him the highest national honors of Vidya Jyoti. And again, the Deshamanya for the distinguished public service he has discharged. Today, we gather here to remember Dr. A. Wijewardena. Let us also draw inspiration from his life for our way forward thoughts also. Let us remember that even in the face of adversity, with determination and vision for a better world, we can achieve greatness always. Let his legacy remind us that every one of us has the power to make a positive difference in this world. I would like to welcome each and every one of you today who have joined us on honoring the memory of engineer Dr. A. Wijewardena. His legacy will continuously inspire us, and his contribution will forever be in our minds of his history. Thank you again, and may all strive to carry out forward his spirit of innovation, compassion, and the dedication to a brighter future for Sri Lankans. With that short welcome address, I wish you all a pleasant memorial session today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for those inspiring words. Now, it gives me great pleasure to invite Engineer Neil Abesekara, Chief Executive Officer of IESL, to formally introduce our distinguished speaker, Engineer Lalit Wijewardena. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Let me have the privilege of introducing our speaker today. Engineer Lalit Senaviratna has over 40 years of experience in the corporate field, primarily with Motorline Corporation. In April 2023, he completed a 3-year term as Executive Director and Group CEO of Sri Lanka Telecom PLC. Lalit started his career in 1982 as an engineer in the then Sri Lanka Telecommunication Department. Subsequently, he became the founding CTO of Celtel, region's first mobile telephone network, commissioned in 1989. He is currently a consultant to a regional consultancy company and a director of Escas Power, under which there are a couple of mini hydro plants in operation. Lalit is the recipient of the 1999 Motorola CEO Award for volunteerism. For his contribution towards conservation, he was made an honorary director in the Department of Wildlife Conservation. For his social entrepreneurship and innovation, he was elected as an Ashoka Fellow and a Lemson Fellow. He's a chartered engineer and a member of the Institution of Engineering and Technology UK. Engineer Dr. Wijewardena was Lalit's mentor and friend during the last decade of Dr. Ray's life. It was Ray's guidance that made Lalit get into biomass energy and developing an indigenous dendro-electrical generator named Lanka Sunrain Rays Honor. Those locally manufactured electrical generators provided wood-powered electricity to 6 villages in the dry zone for over a decade until the electricity supply from the national grid came to them in year 2013. Over to you, sir.
Good evening. Engineer Grani Jayalat, President of the Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka, past presidents, President-elect, Vice Presidents, Engineer Mahesh Disanayaka, Chairman of the Agriculture and Plantation Engineering Sectional Committee, Council members, Engineer Neil Abesekara, CEO, eminent fellows and members, family members of Wijewardena, Wijewardena, and the Reverend and distinguished guests. It is an honor to be invited by IESL to deliver this Wijewardena Memorial Oration on the 101st birthday of Ray and just 2 days after his 15th death anniversary. I'm also pleased to see Ray's daughters Anoma and Roshi here today for the occasion, with the youngest daughter Mandy being out of the country. We miss Ray's charming wife Sheila, who passed away about a year ago. While I wish I had known Ray throughout his life, I came to know him only during the last decade of his life. During those 10 years, though, he was not only my good friend, but equally my greatest mentor. I am not incorrect in saying that I would not be where I am today if not for Ray. They say that you don't learn as much from someone in the middle of their life as much as you would learn from someone who is in their elderhood. I met Ray due to a learned and yet silent gentleman named Ranjit Wijewardena, whom I am pleased to see here today. Ray and I became friends instantly. All what I am relating today are those I heard and experienced firsthand during literally weekly conversations I had with Ray in his study above his garage that was also his workshop and our travels to different parts of the country. Okay. At a time when Sri Lankans are doubting and questioning their identity, and many leaving our shores, Ray was one who never even once wavered in being proud to be Sri Lankan from the time of his childhood. So Ray's mother was Sri Lankan. Actually, he was at this time the most eminent gynecologist in the country. And his mother was English. He was a nurse. So it was only when Ray was 12 that he got a chance of going to England. His mother took him to England, and his mother's side, they were from what is called a county family, which is like the nobility in their county. So, and Ray, as being Ray, whom we know, was always a very mischievous child, and who you could never predict what he would be, the antics he would be up to. So the mother was really with concern what would happen, because they were going back home, and they were the nobility of the county. And so he told him several times, son, please be mindful and make sure you maintain our dignity. So the first day itself, when they went there to their home, they invited the rest of the nobility families for tea. And what did Ray do? He drank off the saucer and embarrassed everybody, including terribly his mother. And these antics continued for a week until it was Sunday. And, that was supposed to be the end of their stay. And Sunday, in those days, everybody in the village turned up at church for the mass and the service. So again, Ray's mom told him, son, please, at least this time, protect our dignity and behave yourself. So Ray said, yes, mom. And they went to church, and then the parish priest came, and, as usual, you must have a hymn before the service and a hymn afterwards. But it so happened the organist had not turned up. So the parish priest said, is there anybody in the congregation who might like to come and take the place of the organist? Who raised a hand and ran right to the front? Ray, little Ray. And mother was flabbergasted. My God, what the hell is he going to do now? And Ray played the pipe organ so well and continued after the sermon again the hymns. And then when the whole congregation went out to the churchyard, they all congratulated Ray, and then they all unanimously asked Ray to come back to the church and give another performance. And that day, Ray showed to the rest of the county what a Ceylonese is. So that's what Ray always was. Ray's boundless energy and wisdom were an inspiration to many. He believed and acted in such a way that advancing age would bring him one successive golden age on top of the other. He would often repeat thus, if you thought the 60s were your golden years, wait until you reach the 70s, and so on. His life thus mirrored a passage from Ulysses, which he often quoted. Yet, all experience is an arch wherethrough gleams that untraveled world, whose margin fades forever and forever when I move. Ray's landmark accomplishments were many, among which the Landmaster stands tall. It was the name he coined for the world's first two-wheel tractor that he designed. And the Landmaster uplifted the lives of countless millions of farmers across the rice-growing areas of the world. Once, America's acclaimed architect and engineer of the propitious 1960s, Buckminster Fuller asked Ray a thought-provoking question. This was when Ray was lecturing to Harvard graduate students on the success story of his two-wheel tractor. Buckminster Fuller, among other things, published 30 books, was awarded 28 US patents, and popularized many designs, including the geodesic door. The question Fuller asked simply was, Ray, when you thought of the two-wheel tractor, were you thinking of mechanizing the buffalo, or were you thinking of mechanizing agriculture? The change in Ray was instantaneous. Fuller ignited in Ray the value of looking at the whole and not the components. And from that day, Ray became committed to sustainability. Ray would often cite the example of the note quickly scribbled by the respected economist and intellectual John Kenneth Galbraith, the then US ambassador to India, and passed on to President Kennedy when Kennedy was trying to dictate terms to India while at a meeting with Prime Minister Nehru. And Nehru was fuming. The note he silently passed on simply said, farmers in India generally believe that it is unwise to take counsel from those who do not practice what they preach. That instantly changed Kennedy's tone towards Nehru, made a furious Nehru cool down, and the meeting ended on an amicable note. It saved Kennedy from having to leave India abruptly empty-handed. Perhaps AKT can learn from this when he's dealing with Modi. I'm just teasing, of course. The best example of Ray's philosophy was his beloved coconut estate Kohomba near Chilau, which at the end of his tireless labor became completely sustainable while giving the highest recorded yields in the country and the best of coconuts. In that sense, Ray was one of the first to think of what we call today net zero, long before the term was used. We need not look elsewhere other than Kohomba for proof that we can have a Sri Lanka with food security without the draining over-dependency on imported fertilizers and chemicals, and in the process, further make our people regain the level of health once we enjoy. One Independence Day, Ray posed us the following question. Of what are we independent? Do we Sri Lankans even know the meaning of the word independence that we lavishly celebrate today? Instead, Ray explained, like the relationship between parents and children, neither independent nor dependent, rather interdependent. That should be the relationship between nations. While no nation, however powerful, is truly independent in this globalized economy, one should be non-dependent in 4 critical spheres: food and nutrition, health and wellness, energy and security. That's what Ray said. History of Sri Lanka aptly shows how we prospered when we met these criteria and faltered when we didn't. 19th May 2009, the end of our civil war, is living proof of the benefit of fulfilling the last. Ray lived to see the end of this brutal civil war. Ray argued that there should be a simple vetting system at every level where any project or initiative is carried through only if it positively impacts the above criteria and is discouraged if it negatively impacts. What a straightforward set of precepts for us to follow as a nation to ensure that we rise again to be a proud and happy people. Let me quote what Prime Minister Modi of India said on 31st July, a day before Trump tariffs were to begin. The government will take all necessary steps to secure our national interest as it has always done. What he meant here was primarily not compromising the well-being of the 700 million farmers of India, and thereby ensuring India remains non-dependent on others for food and nutrition. Although we might sometimes have a push-pull relationship, we can learn from India. Their people are more or less non-dependent in 3 of the 4 areas: food and nutrition, health and well-being, and security. The only area where India is dependent is energy, for India has not much oil or gas. Yet they have diversified their oil and gas imports, and this is why they will not stop imports from Russia. But to reduce their dependency on imported energy, India is adding solar and wind at the rate of almost 4 gigawatts of capacity per month. China, the country with the highest rate of renewable energy growth, is adding a staggering 50 gigawatts of capacity per month. That is 8 times the total generation capacity of Sri Lanka in all forms, added every month just in renewable energy. Mind you, our lion's share of generation regrettably being from fossil fuels. It is so unfortunate that we are retarding the growth of renewable energy opposite to what the rest of the world is doing. For this, we engineers must be blamed primarily. Shamefully, we are giving 20th century excuses in this 21st century. Here, Ray was ahead of his time with the idea of using biomass or dendro as one source of energy for Sri Lanka. In his usual pioneering spirit, he experimented in this field and encouraged many of us to boldly do so likewise. His favorite theme for this initiative was regraining Sri Lanka. This too was keeping with his holistic approach, for dendro not only provides energy, but restores soil fertility, helps the regreening of the landscape, and importantly provides additional livelihood for the rural people. I am happy to see here today Engineer Parakrama Jayasinghe is here, who worked side by side with Ray in promoting biomass energy. He himself being a pioneer in executing numerous biomass energy-based projects, such as the landmark Ailey's activated carbon manufacturing plant. Ray aptly borrowed and adapted Lincoln's quote to illustrate the point. Power from the people, by the people, for the people. Today, Ray's vision is partly coming to fruition with many industries, big and small, using dendro for their thermal energy needs. Large power plants such as the Tokyo Cement 10 megawatt plant in Trincomalee, supplying electricity to the grid, and the village level micro power plants that provided basic electricity to rural people until the grid got them connected, all built by some of the people he inspired. By dendro, Ray did not mean cutting down trees, but growing fast-growing or short rotation coppicing species such as Clearsedia in the dry zone of Sri Lanka. That fixes nitrogen in the soil, provides foliage rich in nitrogen, and is a nutritious fodder for cattle. In addition to providing biomass, and dendro power is carbon neutral, where the carbon dioxide emitted from a dendro power station is what the trees have absorbed from the atmosphere in the same life cycle. Whereas fossil fuels are the derivatives of trees that lived millions of years ago, and therefore burning them causes a net addition of greenhouse gases. In fact, it was renewable energy that made our friendship bloom. Ray was fascinated by a group of Moratuwa interns led by me and a few colleagues who put up Sri Lanka's first and, to the best of our knowledge, world's first off-grid solar village electrification system, where the village of Pokunathanna with 30 homes was provided with 240-volt electricity from a central solar and wind power plant in the year 2000. This is a picture of our power plant. And this is one of the village homes which we lighted, and in the background you can see 3 of the Moroto University interns who worked with us, and all voluntarily we did this and commissioned it. Pokunathanna had a sweet spot in Ray's heart, and he loved staying in our small house in the jungle that doubled up as a field station. Here Ray having a cup of tea. Ray urged us to get into dendro power, that led us to develop an indigenous dendro electrical generator we named Lanka Sun Ray in his honor. And these generators provided electricity to about 6 villages in the vicinity of Pokunathanna. These were the first villages in Sri Lanka to get electricity from dendro or biomass. They operated for about a decade until the national grid came in 2013. It was Ray who encouraged us every step of the way. This is the generator we developed, and this is inside one of the village power stations. And this is Ray and me inaugurating Sri Lanka's first biomass electrified village. And this is a nighttime view of one of the power stations. And this is another power station which was near Balangoda. And this picture signifies something which is important. You can see the kids, because in the rural areas, most times in the schools, there is a dearth of science teachers. So the children never get to learn technology, science. And when we did this kind of a project, we found that the kids were the most interested because they could see technology working, although they could not learn it at school. So it's unfortunate we are still mostly there. And one thing I want to mention about this generator we developed, this was, again, to the best of our knowledge, for a small dendro generator, the first time in the world we developed a generator which could clean the producer gas without requiring water using the Venturi scrubber. So we developed a dry technology where we could not only clean the gas, but cool the gas. And that was one accomplishment we had. And Ray christened the dendro generator we developed by charging his electric vehicle, which was the first electric vehicle in Sri Lanka, long before most of us knew what electric vehicles were. Hard to imagine today with BYDs everywhere. And this is Ray, this is me charging Ray's electric vehicle in the background. And that was the day we commissioned this generator in the workshop. We built it in Colombo. And Ray's car was the first customer, and we charged this car with our generator. And there's this interesting story, because this first electric car in Sri Lanka, which are Ray's, had only a range of 80 kilometers compared to today's cars. And that was just about enough for him to go to home estate and return. So one day he was returning, he ran short of juice in Paliagoda. And what did he do? He pushed the car to the side, and there was a house by the side of the road, and he went in and asked the family who occupied the house, can he use the plug point? So they were really amazed. What does he mean? Can I use the plug point for the car? Anyway, he pulled the cord out, charged the car for 10-15 minutes, just enough to get back to his home in Dharmapala Mawatha. And then end of it, he asked the family, now, thank you very much for giving your electricity. Can I pay for it? So they said, no, sir, this is unbelievable. We have never seen a car which runs on electricity. You must be mad. We'll never think of accepting money from you. And they let him go. Our idea behind building these small village level power plants was to ultimately design an indigenously developed larger capacity generator of 500 kilowatt capacity and get the private sector to invest in these and set up plants all across the dry zone. That way, the dry zone farmers could grow glycidia that does not require water or fertilizer and sell the harvested wood to these power stations, all a part-time occupation in addition to their normal farming. This will give them the added income to provide a decent living, income that would go to the farmers instead of being remitted abroad to purchase oil and coal. It was simply replicating the successful tea factory model in the low country tea areas like Ratnapura and Deniaya, where thousands of tea smallholders make a decent living by selling green leaf they grow to the nearest privately owned tea factory. Or it was replicating President Premadasa's far-reaching 200 garment factory initiative that is today reaping immense benefits. But alas, on most occasions, the powers that be do not favor indigenous solutions or incremental solutions. Rather, we have preferred foreign-funded mega initiatives. Today, the rest of the world is moving towards decentralized power generation with a smart grid, whereas we are moving at snail's pace. Ray's love for trees and all things green was signified by this poem of Joyce Kilmer. I think that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree that looks at God all day and lifts her leafy arms to pray, a tree whose hungry mouth is pressed against the earth's wide flowing breast, and on whose branches snow has lain, who intimately lives with rain, a tree that may in summer wear a nest of robins in her hair. Poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree. Ray was a man who was quick to recognize, revel, and be ecstatic at the smallest wonders of nature, or even the smallest of man-made things that benefit the people. On such moments, he would invariably recall Browning's words: "The years at the spring and days at the morn. Mornings at 7, the hillside is dew-pearled. The larks on the wing, the snails on the thorn. God's in his heaven and all's right with the world." Nature always aroused Ray's curiosity, and he would come up with the most captivating of questions that could make many an expert stand still. Be it elephants or tiniest of insects, he would have the most inimitable points of view that would not have crossed the mind of a specialist with years of experience and field work. He would be the first to order a book that spoke of animal instincts or attributes hitherto not discovered, just as much as on any new technology. One of his favorite pictures that he hung in his study was a photo I had taken of a group of elephants surrounding my vehicle and peering inquisitively at the people inside. So this photograph signifies something very special to me and to Ray as well. These group of elephants, maybe 15, 20 years ago, they surrounded my vehicle. They were, holding their trunks together, talking to each other, peering through the window and trying to tell us something. They were trying to say something, but obviously we didn't understand what they were trying to say and we could not talk back. So this went on for more than 45 minutes until they gave up and they dispersed. So this was truly a learning experience for us. Ray would continue to ponder as to what these elephants were trying to say to us people. This was one of the questions he would ask any new visitor to his study. I remember Ray asking the same question once from the then US ambassador. Ray's curiosity reminds us of a phrase from Winnie the Pooh, stories by A.A. Milne. People talk to animals, but not many listen. That's the problem. If only we listen to elephants, we would not be having nearly 500 elephants a year senselessly massacred. It is these thoughts from Ray that made our team develop the world's first solid-state system to automatically detect elephant infrasound calls. Our idea was to make this system detect elephants before they approach farmland. While we developed and successfully tested the prototype, we never had the perseverance to take it to the next level. Instead, we handed over the technology, including the source code of the software, to Wijewardena University, who were keen to take it to the next level. But unfortunately, that was not to be. This was a failure on our part. Most people, when thinking of elephant communication, think of the trumpeting they make, as these are what we hear. It is the rumbles, sounds that are inaudible to us due to their low frequency, the frequency band classified as infrasound, that elephants use to communicate over several kilometers. In rumbles, we have a sort of bossy vocabulary. We were guided here by the respected African elephant researcher, Joyce Poole, who along with Cynthia Moss were the first to decipher what some of the rumbles convey. And working here with us, she recognized 8 rumbles using our system that are common with the African elephant. Mind you, the Asian elephant and the African elephant diverged from a common ancestor more than 6 million years ago. This is a block diagram of the system we developed, and this is the prototype we made, and it was on what's called a single board computer, which was a tiny computer which existed 25 years ago, and I would say today's equivalent of the Raspberry Pi. But this week I saw NVIDIA announce their AI computer, palm size, $249, 70 trillion transactions a second, 70 trillion. So you can imagine what the future holds. And we are, I guess, nowhere. So, this is one of our Morato interns around 2000. Ganesh Tolvira, he's now head of the energy, one of the energy regulatory. I mean, he's really the senior director at the Energy Regulatory Authority in Canada. So we had about 7 students from Morato who work with us. Unfortunately, 6 of them are not in the country. So, but there's one, Ishari, who is a bright spot in telecom. She remained in Sri Lanka, right? So what I spoke today about electrification and elephant detection was not to brag about what we did, but to show what an inspiration Ray was to us. All this happened 25 years ago, driven by the passion Ray ignited in us. But the failure we had in common with many Sri Lankans is that we did not recognize the intellectual property value of these inventions and protected their rights, including patenting for the benefit of the country, and commercialized them. This is a message I would like to leave to the younger generations. Most times, because we have become slaves to imports and imported projects, we forget that once we were a nation of innovators. For example, in hydraulic engineering, urban design and landscaping, inventing natural wind furnaces over 2000 years ago to produce wood steel the steel that went into production of legendary Damascus steel, Buddhist monastic architecture, specialized harvesting and peeling methods in cinnamon production, native or heller medicine, etc. And in contemporary times, James Taylor, who refined pre-processing methods, development of the crepe rubber and coir-based products, vein graphite mining and applications, ICT solutions like blockchain-based tea traceability, etc., and of course, the hand tractor. Today, we must not forget that innovation and protecting the intellectual property rights go side by side. Talking of dependency on imports, another of Ray's anecdotes, sometime in the 60s, Ray was invited by what's called a Black American family to come and stay with us. So at that time, before time when there was segregation, it was acceptable to call the Black American people Negroes or niggers, which is really a derogatory term today. So he stayed with this Black family, and one Sunday, the family said, there's a very important person coming to our church today. We have to go, and invited Ray to come as well. So they went to the church, and the church was packed with, again, at that era, only Black American people. And suddenly, briskly walked this tall, handsome Black man and went to the front of the church podium, and he took the mic and he just said, the trouble with you niggers is that you buy what you want and you beg for what you need. So this is, I think, applicable to us Sri Lankans even today, I think. Ray ignited imagination about nature, and of course, Martin Luther King finally won the battle. Segregation ended. Of course, he got murdered in the process. Ray ignited imagination about nature in many a youngster that led to them in later life becoming renowned researchers, including the engineer turned zoologist Rohan Pettiyagoda, who laid the foundation for the discovery of scores of new endemic amphibian species in Sri Lanka, thereby putting our country firmly on the world map of biodiversity. Just as much as he did, Ray encouraged old and young to take the initiative without fear. Go where your heart takes you, while all the time laying a solid foundation so that you will not fall through the cracks. He would often quote Shakespeare thus when encouraging someone who sought his wisdom. There is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves, or lose our ventures. For those who would waver in their commitment to a cause, Ray would often relate the story of the romance between Queen Victoria of Britain and Prince Albert of Germany. Royal families of Britain and Germany, as you may know, were related. Prince Albert was a regular visitor to Balmoral Castle, the private residence of the British royal family in Scotland. There is a passageway that connects the royal quarters to the gardens of the castle. Both Queen Victoria and Prince Albert fell in love, each one in secret, unknown to the other. But neither had the courage to express love first. Until one day, Prince Albert mustered enough strength to write down the following graffiti on the passageway wall. Fain would I leap, but fearless I should fall. No sooner Queen Victoria saw this, she knew only Prince Albert would have scribbled this, and in return, she scribbled, "If thy heart fail thee, pray leap not at all." Prince Albert saw this and immediately proposed to Queen Victoria. The rest is history, as we know. Ray taught one not to be disappointed with failures in life or business, to have infinite patience, never take revenge. Advice that has helped many. He never advocated quick fixes and did not believe in band-aid solutions. If one went to him expecting immediate relief, one would be disappointed. But all those who took the bitter medicine he often prescribed emerged fully recovered and stronger, me being one of them. Ray's attitude here can be described by how he was not deterred by the failure of the landmaster. So as most of us know, the landmaster was laughed at when it was first designed in Sri Lanka. But Ray was not deterred. He took a 8mm film of his design, which, the prototype. He took the designs, then he went to England. And he's covered so many agriculture, machinery manufacturing companies. All of them said it looks like a good product, but they didn't have any knowledge about Asian agriculture for them to figure out what the market would be. But there was this particular factory which had shut down a production line, a particular product, and they were looking for something else to produce. So Ray met the managing director, who showed interest and said that, okay, I will invite our board of directors and the chairman tomorrow. Why don't you come and make a presentation? That was the early 1950s when the slide projector had just been invented, where you had to get the plastic slides where you can scribble something and project onto the screen. So Ray went and, showed his film as well as, did a presentation, and the chairman and the board was impressed and said, look, I think there's a point in what you suggested. Anyway, then they brought a large map of the world and hung it on the wall and told Ray, now, we don't know anything about Asian agriculture. You are from Asia, you know about agriculture. What we would like is, if we really commercialize this product, we want you to be our head of marketing and tell us, looking at the world map, what are the countries where you think you can sell your product and how much as a marketing head you can commit. So that was not a question Ray expected, but he had to answer. So he pointed out at Japan, because this was early 1950s. Japan was rising after the war. He said, maybe, I think I can sell 30 tractors in Japan. Korea, he said 10, and Philippines was another rice producing. He said 5. So to his surprise, the board of directors were quite happy and said, okay, Ray, you start work from tomorrow. We start, doing the proper design, testing the prototype and commercializing. You come tomorrow. Only thing, tomorrow I want to call the entire workforce and you have to explain again what you plan. So when he went the next morning, to his utter shock, he saw the world map again with numbers Ray has committed for the first year of sales, saying 30,000 in Japan, 10,000 in Korea, and 5,000 in Philippines. Now, Ray thought, look, this is not going to work. I'm going to say, I'm going to pack my bags and go. But something in him said, no, I'm Ray. I'm going to take the challenge. So he took the challenge. And in 1955, Ray sold 100,000 tractors in Japan. And that company won the Queen's Award for exports in that year. So again, facilities. So there's another side of that story. About 10 years ago, my boss at Motorola was an Israeli guy, Yuval Bloch, and he was going on a cycling tour of Japan. So I told Yuval, whenever you go to a rural area, try to meet the elderly farmers and ask them what they call this tractor. To my surprise, Yuval called back and said, look, Lalit, I met a few old farmers who still call this a landmaster, although the name landmaster is not used anymore. It's a Kubota or a Chinese or whatever. So you can see his legacy. Ray believed in a balanced life, one where, as he called, one balances one's bread and butter life with one's God's life. He aptly illustrated this with an example from his early working life thus. It was the end of the Second World War, and young Ray, just graduated from Cambridge, was looking for work in England. But distraught and just recovering, England had to give priority in all available jobs to those who had fought for their country. Ray's father had made it clear that no cushy life awaits him back in Ceylon. Desperate Ray, with his lateral way of thinking, thought of going of all places to ruin Germany. With little knowledge of German, he ended up in Wolfsburg, where Volkswagen had restarted their first factory after the Second World War. And there, luck shined on him. The factory, resurrecting from the ashes, offered him a machinist job, which he gladly took. He assumed the role of a shift production worker. Next to Ray in the line was a cultured man more than twice his age, who was kind to young Ray and where possible helped Ray to brush up his German. Something intrigued Ray from the beginning. All senior staff passing the line from the head of the factory downwards would always lower the pace when passing this elderly man, bow down and greet him in German, Guten Morgen, Herr Professor, Guten Abend, Herr Professor. Ray could not fathom this and finally took the courage to ask him for an explanation in his broken German. Out came the most enlightening of answers. Son, said the man to Ray, I am a true professor, a professor of anthropology at Leibniz University. My love and passion are teaching, but Germany is bankrupt and cannot pay professors or teachers for that matter of fact. So I teach during daytime for free and work here at night so that I can make a living. This is my bread and butter life. That is my God's life. That made a lasting impression on Ray, and Ray kept to this metaphor ever since, making sure he had a paying vocation so that he could afford to indulge in his passions, be it inventing things, building aircraft, trying the most unique of sports, or playing the violin. Ray was a true follower of the ancient Sri Lankan wisdom of Arapirimasma, or frugality, a sign he saw at a wayside tea boutique when visiting India for the first time he would recall when talking of the subject. Frugality is India's tradition, but modernity views frugality as poverty. While he never aspired to go after wealth, Ray lived a comfortable life until the very end with adequate means. Family and friends who always stood by his side and cared for him. Ray's family consisted of his charming wife, Sheila, who was the strength behind him in all his endeavors, and his 3 daughters, all close to him, yet sometimes naturally intrigued by his adventures. His was truly a blessed life, just as much as he wished others to be blessed. Ray's indefatigable sense of adventure is filled with many an episode. As a boy of 15 boarded at St. Thomas's College, Ray convinced the warden to lend the engine of his valued motorcycle to build a broomstick control plane. The design for this he got from a book by an early French biplane designer, Louis Blériot. Actually, there are 1 or 2 of Blériot planes still surviving in America, and this is one of them. It could barely fly, and so Ray used the warden's motorcycle engine to build a plane using the textbook which Blériot wrote. The only way Ray could test the plane was to push it in the dead of the night to Ratmalan airfield. It was just an airfield at that time. He could barely take off and soon crash landed. With luck, he had crashed into a pond at John Kotalawala's Kandavala estate, later to be Sir John and Prime Minister. That landed Ray with his first broken bones, many in a series, and in hospital. John Kotalavala, despite being a friend of Ray's dad, and the warden, both in true spirit, did not disclose the incident to Ray's father. Later, though, when Ray's dad found out, he rushed to college and caned Ray in front of the warden. He returned to Sri Lanka once from London in a Tiger Moth biplane. He restored flying solo from London to Chennai, and he gifted the plane to the Chennai Madras Flying Club, and still there in the Flying Club. He related how he navigated the barren landscape of the Middle East by following the oil pipelines and landing at airports belonging to Shell to refuel. This is Ray inside the Tiger Moth he restored. Ray navigated the entire length of the then rugged and unspoiled Mahaveli in a canoe. Numerous crash landings and survived them all to tell the tale of the multitude of flying craft he built. This is Ray in the yard in front of his garage at home building a helicopter. And here is another of planes which Ray built, which he used to go to Bolgoda where he did sailing, and the plane had floats so that he could land on water. Once the floats are removed, it could land on ground. So, and there's this interesting story where sometimes Ray used to go to his estate in Colombo in one of his planes, and he went in one of the gyrocopters he built, and on the way he crashed at Madampe. I think most of us know where Madampe is, where the shrine with the horse is, and there's a vast paddy field there, and with luck he crashed onto a paddy field which had just been plowed quite deep. So he survived as usual with many broken bones, and he tells me, if you know the amount of steel in my body, you'll be surprised or shocked. So he ended up in the general hospital few weeks to recover, and once he was about to be discharged, he called his driver to come and pick him up. So the driver came, and on the way something reminded him of his mother, late mother, who used to take him to Christchurch Golface when he was small. And something happened, and he told driver, let's drive into Christchurch Golface. So they drove in, and they walked into the church, him and driver, and the church was completely empty, and they sat on a pew, Ray by the aisle and the driver next to him, and Ray looked forward and thought of the small days when his mom used to bring him to church, and suddenly he sees his mother walking down the aisle. So he's utterly surprised. Mind you, Ray is a non-believer in religion. I mean, in the sense he respected all religions, but he didn't have a religion per se. But he saw his mom walking down. The mom walked down and patted Ray on the back and said, son, you have many more things for you to do, and just disappeared. So Ray was really, finding it very difficult to believe what happened. So he looked at his driver to find the driver with hair like Einstein. So he asked driver, what happened? What? No, sir. Suddenly I saw a ball of lightning coming into the church, and I got blinded, and then it disappeared. I didn't know what happened. So this is a true story of Ray, and he could never explain what happened. His crowning glory in aviation was building the suitcase plane and being its stunt pilot, evading dummy air-to-air missiles for the Bond movie, You Only Live Twice. Probably those who have seen the old Bond movies remember You Only Live Twice, one of the best Bond movies made in the 60s, and where they show Q, the design engineer of the MI5, who designs these gadgets for James Bond, giving Ray a suitcase, airplane which can be folded into a suitcase. Actually, that was a plane which Ray built. What happened was they were to film, the film was to be on location in Japan. So the producer, Ian Fleming, and including Sean Connery, were flying from England to Japan. And those days, you had to stop in Ratmalana to refuel because there were no long-haul aircraft. So they came to Ratmalana to refuel and take in the food. And they saw this funny aircraft which is going up, down, sideways. And the producer said, my God, these are the plane we've been looking for. Yeah, we are not going until we have the plane. So they said they are not going today, and this was a chartered aircraft. So they stayed, they waited till the aircraft land, and then I went to the pilot, Ray, and said, introduced and said, Ray, we want this plane. So Ray said, look, the plane goes only if I go. So they signed a contract, and Ray became the stunt pilot, and he went to Japan. And if you see the movie, actually it's Ray who is piloting the gyrocopter which he built. So this is again a feat which very few Sri Lankans know, unfortunately, or we prefer not to know about other Sri Lankans. So in sports, he got the 4th place in sailing in the 1968 Mexico Olympics, held in Acapulco, representing Ceylon as a team of one single person versus other countries that had teams with various expertise. I still remember Ray had the briefcase, the Air Ceylon briefcase with Olympics 68, and he cherished it. Every time he travels outside Colombo, he takes his stuff in this briefcase, the Air Ceylon briefcase. So, and he was convinced that the Americans and the Australians later connived together in a sinister plot to defeat the little minion Ceylon in the later races. It would have been an utter humiliation for them otherwise. Anyway, he got the 4th place. And another interesting story. So the day when he won the first race in Acapulco, they were to have a bullfight. And, Ceylon winning the first sailing race was unheard of at that time. So they invited Ray to come as the guest of honor for the bullfight. So the bullfight happened, and suddenly they find that he's invited to the arena, and they tell him, now you have to be the matador. And they give him one of these big red handkerchief, what's called the muleta, and tell Ray, now you got to fight the bull. So, of course, the entire crowd is watching. Ray couldn't do a thing. And the bull came on the first round, and Ray tried to wave the hanky. The hanky got entangled in the horns, and the bull went back and, was coming for the second round. Ray knew that that was the end of his life. There was no way he was going to defend. At the last 10th second, the other matadors jumped into the arena, pulled Ray out, and saved him. So, in the 1970 Asian Games, Ray won a silver medal. These were all remarkable feats, even by today's standards, and feats no other Sri Lankan has even come close to matching. Ray would justify his adventures by further recalling Browning thus. But a man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's a heaven for? Ray's humility was such that he never wanted to broadcast about his feats. He was, for his own unique reasons, averse to publishing his story while he was around. He simply took the view that while he was flying solo from London to Chennai, there were others doing the route London to Auckland, and all with their own resources, at their own will, unlike today's world of commercial sponsorship. Ray's wit equaled his wisdom, and one was never wanting in his company. He would recall with laughter relating to what Geoffrey Bawa, the renowned architect, exclaimed in astonishment when Ray crash-landed his plane on the roof of Bawa's mansion Lunuganga while coming for a lunch invitation. So this is these the type of the auto gyrocopter Ray built, but the first one was a single seater which are used in the Bond movie. And here Ray having landed on Bawa's roof in Lunuganga. So when Bawa invited him for lunch, Ray said, Jeffrey, today I'm going to fly and come for lunch. So Bawa said, okay, Ray, you know my driveway, right? And you remember the fig tree right at the beginning. So you take aim for the fig tree, just fly just over the fig tree and land on the driveway. So Ray took his plane and went, and he located the fig tree. And all he remembered was while skirting the fig tree, suddenly a tornado-like thing came. Everything went black. And next minute, he was barely hanging on Bawa's roof. And all the other guests heard the thud and all the noise and came out. And, Ray was bruised, but he was not, no broken bones. And then Bawa came out and said, Ray, I have had so many guests come into Lunuganga, but you are the first to come through the roof. So what Bawa didn't tell Ray was that this fig tree is used for roosting by the bats. So when the plane went just above the fig tree, all the bats got off and hit the propeller, broke the propeller, and everything went dark and Ray landed on the roof. So this is, and even a couple of years ago when we went to Lunuganga, there was this, steward who had been a little boy, and he said, sir, we remember the incident so well because the entire village heard that a plane had crashed and landed on Mr. Bawa's roof, and we all as kids rushed there to see what had happened. So this says it all about the spirit of this most distinguished citizen of Sri Lanka. I recall so vividly the last time I saw him. Unlike before, instead of meeting in his study, we met in his bedroom. He got his wife Sheila to bring a bottle of scotch and some ice. The taste of scotch depends on the company, and that was the most sweet drink of scotch I have ever had. After one drink, he walked me to my car. Once I got in, he held my hand and simply said, I will not see you again. Ray passed away not that much later. Every innovation Ray did was in searching for an answer to a challenge that he faced, like in the case of the hand tractor. Ray taught us the need to innovate for the global market, not just for the domestic market. We are a small nation. Our affordability is little, and our market, unlike, say, India, is small. Whereas global markets give the margin and scale to hire the top engineers to produce top products, and in the process, retain some of the best brains in the country. This is one major lesson we can learn from Ray. If we think of it, we as a nation, from a product point of view, hardly export any. We are still reliant largely on commodities that are increasingly produced cheaper by our competitors. Services, yes, including IT, but with AI, services will face big challenges unless we go for more efficient and sophisticated IT, all of which require the best of talent to remain in the country. I think today India is facing the same issue where, no longer is IT the simple IT people want, because AI can do it and they need the specialists. This is not to say that there are no companies and startups in Sri Lanka that do product innovation for the global market, but we need many more of them. And today we have in our audience Engineer Kirti Kodituakku, a Moratuwa graduate whose startup Gendo Innovation has invested in R&D, product innovation, and original intellectual property. The other day, Keith was explaining to me how one of his inventions in medical diagnostics that he patented in US and Japan already has been valued at 25 million US dollars in intellectual property value in the US even before commercialization. Kirti points us to the future where we should go. With dark factories already starting, so-called because there are no lights inside, run end-to-end by robots, manufacturing will shift to where the market is. We are only daydreaming if we expect global companies to set up large manufacturing plants here and export, because the main advantage we have, labor, will no longer matter. When manufacturing is fully automated, factories will be where the markets are and thereby save on logistics and supply chain issues. Instead, the future of Sri Lanka is to innovate for the global market in Sri Lanka using our talent, but manufacture where the market is. Ray did this 75 years ago. Again, we can look to Kirti, where one of his medical electronics products he manufactures in Switzerland, where he can get the manufacturing precision and recognition to market in Europe without logistic issues or customs barriers. In fact, Trump tariffs have accelerated this need. With fully automated factories, whether they are big or small, they will be equally efficient. That's where Sri Lanka will have a place. So in Sri Lanka, looking into the next 5 to 10 years, we will be able to set up small automated factories to cater to the local market for the products we invent for the global market. The deciding factor will be the cost of electricity, the biggest operational cost in a robot-driven plant. As we spoke, this is where we are at a huge disadvantage due to the non-adoption of renewable energy on a rapid scale. For the global market, we will need to replicate manufacturing in those countries. We must, as a nation, give the support to seed many more companies and make them unicorns, as we have not a single unicorn. Actually, Kirti, I would like you to get up, because I think I urge the rest of the members and anyone interested to meet him, because he's a true Sri Lankan product of Morutu, who has gone global, who has been invited by Cambridge University to set up innovation lab there. The Japanese government invited him to set up a company there. So we need more of you, Kirti. Thank you. Arnold Schwarzenegger was a champion bodybuilder, a top actor, and later governor of California. He led California to become the 6th largest economy in the world. He adopted far-reaching sustainable policies long before most nations thought of them. Recently, Schwarzenegger wrote a book simply titled Be Useful. Short yet a profound title. Ray was one who preached as well as practiced this phrase until the end. His life was useful to everyone who touched him. Dear friends, I will conclude with another poem Ray referred to me. One from the book, It Was the Babbler's Nest, that talks nostalgically of the carefree life in Colombo at the turn of the 20th century. It was written by Conrad Felsinger, who was a lecturer in English at Wijewardena in the 1960s. The title is Auf Wiedersehen, meaning until we meet again in German. The tales that I have told you are tales of boyhood free, when friends would meet together underneath the greenwood tree, or walk the fields from dawn till dusk and test their marksman aim. For pelting birds, collecting eggs, and swimming were the game. Full many small adventures in our daily rounds we met. These deeds that I have told are the deeds I can't forget. Our joyous days were many, full of laughter, fun, and song, which I remember now with thoughts of friends who passed along and gone across the border to their happy hunting grounds. Perhaps they are out on hunts in woods and fields which have no bounds. Perhaps they laugh and talk of us when all is said and done, as we may sometimes meet and talk of them now dead and gone. For friends have gone and youth is gone, and places too have changed, but we still keep our memories of fields and woods we ranged. And those are thoughts that stay with us, and never will they fade until in turn we pass along and in the earth are laid. So wherever Ray is, I'm sure Ray is talking of his beloved Lanka and its people just as much as we speak of him today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Engineer Lalit Wijewardena, for that thought-provoking and inspiring oration. Now, to express our heartfelt gratitude and appreciation for our esteemed speaker, Engineer Lalit Wijewardena, I would like to invite Engineer Granny R. Jayalath, Engineer Neil Abesekara, and Engineer Mahesh Dissanayaka to come forward and present a token of our respect and admiration. Let's all put our hands together to honor our distinguished speaker. I now invite Engineer Mahesh Dissanayaka, Chairman, Agriculture and Plantation Engineering Sectional Committee of Institute of Engineers, Sri Lanka, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Gayatri. So we are coming to the end of Desamani Philip Ray Wijewardena Memorial Oration. So on behalf of Agriculture and Plantation Engineering Sectional Committee, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to President ISL, Engineer Ganiar Jayalath, for delivering welcoming speech and also gracing this occasion. And also I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to President-elect Engineer Kosal Kamburadeniya, and also all past President of ISL being with us today. So our sincere thanks goes to the Engineer Lalit Wijewardena for accepting our invitation and delivering an oration. Thank you very much, sir. So during last few weeks, actually, I learned a lot from you, how we are getting ready to this type of things. So thank you very much, sir. We had a very nice and very old memories of Dr. Ray. Actually, we can imagine how Ray is that when we are listening to your lecture. So thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful presentation. And also, we are deeply thankful to family members of late Dr. Ray Wijewardena. Thank you, ma'am. Both of you are, so you are coming here with our short notice. Thank you very much for your commitment. And also, we just want to thank them also because they are ready to donate all the Dr. Ray Wijewardena's memories, their books, publication, innovation to the ISL. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your initiative. And also, I would like to thank our Vice President of ISL and also all the council members of ISL for being with us today. So you are always encourage us to do this type of things. And also, we are grateful to our CEO, Executive Secretary Engineer Neil Abesekara, and also all the members of the Secretary staff. Especially, I want to thank Assistant Manager Ms. Sanduni, Manager Publication Mr. Chamila, and also Manager Operation Mr. Larinda for their smooth cooperation during this organizing the memorial oration. And also we can't forget our audience. Thank you very much, all our eminent engineers plus businessmen and businessmen plus some politicians among our audience. So thank you very much all for you being with us today, and without your participation we couldn't have this much of a successful event today. Thank you very much being with us today. And lastly, I want to thank Engineer Silva, our organizer of this event and also compeer of the event today, and also Engineer Dr. Nilanthi Fernando, our secretary of the sectional committee, and all the members of the sectional committee for their continuous support to arranging this event from Agriculture and Plant Engineering sectional committee. So with that, I conclude my vote of thanks, and thank you very much again for all being with us. Have a nice evening. Thank you very much.